But let me, before we get off the subject of the Supreme Court, ask a question that I think, well, I won't say would interest you uniquely, but would interest you more than a lot of people I know who are governors, and that is the extraordinary extent to which the Supreme Court has, especially in the last 20 or 30 years, somehow acceded to a position of moral authority. It seems to be an arbiter not of what the Constitution says, but of what we ought to believe. I'll give you an example. George McGovern, during the primary fight in 1972, was asked what he thought about busing. He happened to be asked that question in a state that was opposed to busing, black and white alike. And he said, well, I think we should do what the Supreme Court tells us that we should do. He said, I incline against it as a solution. But, of course, if the Supreme Court says it has to be done, that's the end of the question. The answer is, of course, that it's not the end of the question. It's the end of the question of what the Supreme Court says the Constitution should be done. But we ought to be left, ought we not, with the alternative of overruling the Supreme Court by constitutional amendment.
That is a very
really
drastic alternative.
I know, but aren't they asking really for something like internal assent? They're asking us to treat the Supreme Court more or less as Catholics are asked to treat the papacy. I think we
a little
need
more toleration for our three branches of government, or I don't think this country's going to make it.
I think we should have much more intoleration for our institutions. I think our institutions have let us down. I think the Supreme Court has made some lousy decisions. I think Congress merits the low esteem in which it is held. I think that the overwhelming majority of the American politicians speak pap and attempt to please people for the sake of their own aggrandizement, and that our institutions are in very lousy shape. Now, I'm syntactically resourceful, but I couldn't begin to use a judgment to criticize the Supreme Court that could equal in intensity the condemnations of the court by members of it.